പ്രിൻസിപ്പൾ വന്ന ഉടനെ നമുക്ക് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്യാം കേട്ടോ. ഇപ്പൊ വരുന്നു പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്.
ഗുഡ് ഈവനിങ്. ഞാൻ
സാറേ ഞാനൊന്ന് റെക്കോർഡ് ഇട്ടോട്ടെ സാറേ, എന്നിട്ട് നമുക്ക് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്യാം.
And attendees of this function, a warm good evening to one and all. We all know that October 4th is observed as the World Animal Welfare Day, with an aim to improve the welfare standards of animals around the globe. Throughout history, humans have utilized fish as a major food source, especially of proteins. With the growing needs of population, aquaculture or fish farming became increasingly important. Fishes are also reared for recreational purposes. Many edible and ornamental fishes are being reared and traded in our country. Proper techniques in feeding are essential for the welfare and growth of fishes, which in turn profit the fish rearers. Today, on account of this World Animal Welfare Day, the Zoology Department of St. Peter's College, Kolenchery, is conducting this online workshop session to impart awareness on fish feeding methods and techniques. This program aims at creating knowledge among students to understand the scientific methods of fish feeding. Our chief guest and resource person for today's workshop is Dr. P. Vijayagopal sir, the retired principal scientist and former scientist in charge of Marine Biotechnology Division at the Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute, CMFRI, Cochin. I am sure that this webinar will add new information to our existing knowledge about fish rearing. Aquaculture and fish feed preparation techniques are also part of our core and complementary applied zoology syllabus. And I must say, we are so fortunate to have such an excellent teacher and scientist, Dr. P. Vijayagopal sir, to explain the key topic for our curriculum. To start with the formal proceedings of this session, I welcome Ms. Diva Rachel of TDC Zoology for the welcome speech.
A very warm and pleasant good evening to an entire present over here. I'm Diva Rachel of the DC Zoology. It is a moment of extreme pleasure to welcome you all to this workshop on fish feed preparation. First and foremostly, I would like to welcome our chief guest of the day, Dr. P. Vijayagopal, the retired principal scientist of Marine Biotechnology Division, CMFRI, Cochin. CMFRI is a pioneer institute which has contributed significantly to the development of marine fisheries sector from a predominantly artisanal fishery to that of complex multi-gear fisheries. Dr. P. Vijayagopal has made immense contributions towards fulfilling the mission of this institute and crossed the boundaries of excellence with his great vision and hard work. His area of research are aquatic feed biotechnology, food fish nutrition, bioprospecting, and ornamental fish nutrition. He started his career as a resource person in dairy cattle nutrition at the Department of Dairy Development Government of Kerala. He further worked with NAARM of ICAR and later joined CMFRI. He owns a patent of a novel ornamental fish feed named Varna. He has successfully completed 4 research projects and 2 are under progress. He was awarded the DBT Crest Award of India in 2012 for collaborative research work with Timas Polytechnic Singapore in the year 2013 in the area of ornamental fish nutrition. He designed and developed the course contents for postgraduate program in mariculture for Central Institute of Fisheries Education and for the School of Applied Science, Timor Polytechnic, Singapore. He has several publications to his credit, all in highly reputed journals. With great respect and enthusiasm to listen to your talk on behalf of our institution, our dear principal and HOD and all other faculties and students here, I heartily welcome you, sir, to this workshop.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to invite our respected principal, Dr. Shaji sir, who need no introduction. He has been with us as a pillar of encouragement and support for all curricular and extra academic activities, ensuring all-round development for all the students of this institution. It is my greatest pleasure to welcome our beloved principal, Dr. Shaji sir, to this workshop. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Deepa.
Next, I would like to welcome our beloved head of the department, Dr. Susha TK, our dear teacher, a wonderful mentor who has always been inspiring us with her excellent administration, leadership, and kindness. On behalf of all the students, I welcome you, ma'am, to this workshop.
Thank you, Deepa.
Next, I welcome all the faculty members of the department, Dr. Arun A.U., Dr. Adra V.R., Ms. Rini Joseph, and all other respected faculties of other department to this workshop. Last but not the least, I welcome all the students present here online to attend this workshop. And once again, welcoming you all to this workshop, I remain. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you, Deepa. Now I would like to invite Dr. Susha ma'am, the beloved HOD of our Zoology department, to deliver the presidential address.
Thank you, Mosina. Principal Dr. Shaji Varghese, our chief guest Dr. P. Vijayagopal, colleagues and my dear students. ഈ ദിവസത്തിന്റെ പ്രത്യേകത നിങ്ങൾ തുടക്കത്തിൽ തന്നെ ശ്രദ്ധിച്ചു. ഒക്ടോബർ 4 വേൾഡ് എനിമൽ വെൽഫെയർ ഡേ. ഇന്ന് 96ാമത് വേൾഡ് എനിമൽ വെൽഫെയർ ഡേ ആണ്. 1925 മാർച്ച് 24-ന് 5000-ഓളം വരുന്ന എനിമൽ ആക്ടിവിസ്റ്റുകൾ ജർമ്മനിയിൽ ഒത്തുകൂടുകയും ഈ പ്രപഞ്ചത്തിന്റെ നിലനിൽപ്പിന് മനുഷ്യനോളം തന്നെ പ്രാധാന്യം മറ്റ് ജീവജാലങ്ങൾക്കും ഉണ്ടെന്നും അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ അവയുടെ ജീവിത നിലവാരം മെച്ചപ്പെടുത്താനുള്ള ഇടപെടലുകൾ, അവർക്ക് വേണ്ട സംരക്ഷണം, കരുതൽ, സ്നേഹം എന്നിവ ഉറപ്പാക്കേണ്ടത് നമ്മുടെ കർത്തവ്യം ആണെന്നുമുള്ള ബോധ്യം സാധാരണ ജനങ്ങളിലേക്ക് എത്തിക്കുക. ഇത് തന്നെയാണ് ഈ ഒരു ആഘോഷം കൊണ്ട്, അതായത് വേൾഡ് അനിമൽ വെൽഫെയർ ഡേ ആഘോഷം കൊണ്ട് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. അതുകൊണ്ട് കൂടിയാണ് സുവോളജി ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റ് ഈ ഓൺലൈൻ വർക്ക്ഷോപ്പ്, അതായത് ഫിഷ് ഫീഡ് പ്രിപ്പറേഷൻ, ഇന്നേ ദിവസം നിശ്ചയിച്ചതും. അതുപ്രകാരം ഒക്ടോബർ 4-ന് തന്നെ ഈ പ്രോഗ്രാം ചെയ്യാമെന്ന് സമ്മതം തന്ന വിജയഗോപാൽ സാറിനോടുള്ള നന്ദി ആദ്യമേ അറിയിക്കുകയാണ്. സാറിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ സെൻട്രൽ മറൈൻ ഫിഷറി റിസർച്ച് ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ടിലെ മറൈൻ ബയോടെക്നോളജി ഡിവിഷന്റെ ഹെഡായി ഈ കഴിഞ്ഞ ജൂലൈയിൽ വിരമിച്ചു. അറിയപ്പെടുന്ന എനിമൽ ന്യൂട്രീഷനിസ്റ്റ് ആണ്. പ്രത്യേകിച്ചും അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ ഗവേഷണ മേഖല ഫിഷ് ന്യൂട്രീഷൻ ആണ്. CMFRIയുടെ വർണ്ണ സീരീസിലുള്ള ഓർണമെന്റൽ ഫിഷ് ഫീഡ്സ് അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ സംഭാവനയാണ്. അതിന്റെ ഗുണഭോക്താക്കൾ ഓർണമെന്റൽ ഫിഷ് ഫാർമേഴ്സ് തന്നെയാണ്. കൂടാതെ നല്ലൊരു അധ്യാപകൻ, PhD സ്റ്റുഡൻസിനെ ഗൈഡ് ചെയ്യുന്നു. കൂടാതെ ഒട്ടേറെ ഗവേഷണ പഠനങ്ങൾക്ക് നേതൃത്വം നൽകുന്നു. ഇത്രയും പ്രഗത്ഭനായ ഒരാളെ നമ്മുടെ സെന്റ് പീറ്റേഴ്സ് കോളേജിലെ കുട്ടികൾക്ക് അടുത്തറിയാനുള്ള ഒരു അവസരം ലഭിച്ചതിലുള്ള സന്തോഷം ഞാൻ ആദ്യമേ അറിയിക്കുന്നു. ഇത്രയും പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ വാക്കുകൾ അവസാനിപ്പിക്കുന്നു. നന്ദി, നമസ്കാരം.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I invite our Honorable Principal, Dr. Shaju Varghese sir, for the principal's remarks.
ഏവർക്കും നമസ്കാരം. സമയാധികം കളയുന്നില്ല. വിജയഗോപാൽ സാർ നേരത്തെ തന്നെ എത്തി. സാറിന് സെന്റ് പീറ്റേഴ്സ് കോളേജിലേക്ക് ഹൃദയം നിറഞ്ഞ സ്വാഗതം. ആ കോളേജിലെ ഇനി കോളേജൊക്കെ തുറന്നു കഴിയുമ്പോൾ കോളേജിലെ പ്രോഗ്രാമുകൾക്ക് പങ്കെടുക്കണമെന്നുള്ള അഭ്യർത്ഥനയോടുകൂടി ഇന്ന് വേൾഡ് ആനിമൽ വെൽഫെയർ ഡേ ആണ്. ഇതുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് പ്രിപ്പറേഷനെ കുറിച്ച് വളരെ പ്രശസ്തനായ ഒരു സയന്റിസ്റ്റുകൾക്ക് ക്ലാസ് എടുക്കുകയാണ്. ഇത് മാക്സിമം ഉപയോഗിക്കുക. എല്ലാ വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളും സാറിന്റെ ക്ലാസ് ആദ്യാവസാനം പങ്കെടുക്കുകയും അതുകൊണ്ട് ഏറ്റവും നല്ല പ്രയോജനം ലഭിക്കുക വേണ്ടി പ്രയത്നിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യണമെന്ന് മാത്രം പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട്, സുവോളജി ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റ് ധാരാളം പ്രോഗ്രാമുകളാണ് ഈ കഴിഞ്ഞ വർഷങ്ങളിൽ അതിനു മുൻപുള്ള വർഷങ്ങളിലൊക്കെ ചെയ്തത്. ഇതിൽ ഏറ്റവും വിജയഗോപാൽ സാർ സ്നേഹവും അതുകൊണ്ട് നടത്തുന്നു.
Thank you, sir. Now it's the time to move on to the most awaited segment of this session. With great pleasure, I invite Dr. P. Vijayagopal sir to take over the session. Sir, please.
Thank you, friends. We'll begin the discussion on the topic of ornamental fish nutrition and feed technology. And I am not very familiar with the Google Meet. Will anybody help me to or tell me how to share the screen in this? Is it the apply visual effects or change layout? Where is it the screen sharing done? Hello? Yeah, can you hear me?
സാർ താഴെ ഒരു
സെറ്റിംഗ്സ്
താഴെ ഒരു മുകളിലേക്ക് നിൽക്കുന്ന ഒരു ഏരോ ഇല്ലേ, ആ ഏരോയിൽ ക്ലിക്ക് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ സാറിന് ലിങ്ക് ഷെയർ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. സാറിന്റെ ലിങ്ക് അല്ല, സ്ക്രീൻ ഷെയർ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. ഒരു കൈക്ക് തൊട്ട് റൈറ്റ് സൈഡിൽ കാണുന്നു.
മനസ്സിലായി. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, shall we start?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So before I start, I thank the faculty of Zoology department, especially Dr. Susha, who is very well known to me, and her husband Sanil, of course. And then I thank the principal for the nice words, as well as the faculty and the students. Okay, I welcome you all to the topic of the day, ornamental fish nutrition and feed technology, which is very dear to me. Unfortunately, I have to restrict my talk to an hour or so I may have to rush through. So at the end of the talk, what I feel you should be able to understand is the basics of fish nutrition and how to identify the feeding material of the feed stuff, and then how to choose them, then how to go about formulating it scientifically and mixing it, and then finally going into the feed making per se, which can be done with somewhat domestic utensils or kitchen utensils, and then of course a little bit about the all the advanced techniques and feed technology. So that is how, in short, I would like to put into this talk. And let me start with the introduction here. And I have given my telephone number, which is also my WhatsApp number. And below that, you can find the email ID also. And I'll be very happy after the talk also. You can contact me on any of these modes, and I shall be able to clear your doubts or any questions you have, however small it is. So I welcome you to do that. And let me begin the topic with this slide, which is an introduction to the ornamental fishes and how colorful they are, and with some of the scientific names, which you can get familiarized with, mostly available in the net or through even authentic publications also. And now moving on to this ornamental fish feed industry per se. It is a huge business, and I think most of you know that next to photography, this is the most widespread hobby the world over. And the global trade has been estimated to about some $8 billion with an annual growth of 9%, which includes all the accessories, including plants, feed, medications, several things. It is very, very sophisticated area now. And there are about 120 countries involved in the ornamental fish trade, and altogether there are around 1,800 species of fish which are traded, of which about 1,200 are of freshwater origin, and the remaining are brackish water or marine. And most of you may be knowing that the marine ornamental fish are more colorful, and the ecosystem is some sort of a reef ecosystem. And another point which I have put there is the number of species which is traded predominantly. That boils down to around 30 species only, which are mostly the goldfish, guppies, swordtails, and several species like that. And moving on, this is the market share. Since I worked in Singapore, I know they are the biggest traders in the world. It is not because they produce the ornamental fishes. In fact, they import ornamental fishes from all over the world, and that serves as a hub for world trade, where the packaging of these ornamental fishes are done in very, very scientific way, and their connectivity the world over from Singapore airport also helps them to trade these animals in huge quantities. So they enjoy the major share of the trade, which is about 20%, then it is followed by the Czech Republic and Malaysia. Now that is one country from where they get most of their stock, and that is followed by Israel, Sri Lanka, and China. Now coming to the domestic market, I have put there the latest data out of a survey which we did in Chennai recently. It works out about 500 crores with a double-digit growth, which doesn't happen even in the food production sector. So not only in our ornamental fish, but in aquaculture is also a sector which grows in double digits. And the major contribution of ornamental fishes come from West Bengal, and followed by Kerala and Tamil Nadu. And Kerala's share is very meager, 5%. Then coming to the international scenario, again, they produce about 100 million fish from 1,703 units and 160 hectares. And Singapore produces 132 million fish from 156 hectares, and this data is from MPDA and QSAT. Now coming to the share of marine ornamentals, as I told you, the major share is freshwater ornamentals, and the marine ornamentals constitute only about 15%, and that too, you can see that 98% of it is wild caught, so it is a destructive trade which is going on. Now this has to be replaced with breeding of these fishes in captivity, which you can do only with a few families like Pomacentridae, and there is one more family which can be bred in captivity quite extensively. Although otherwise, almost most of the very attractive ornamental fishes, or the very pricey ornamental fishes like the Moorish idol are all wild caught. And the difficulty is most of these wild caught fishes do not feed in an aquarium situation immediately. So they have to be conditioned to a captive sort of environment, and then they should be reared with feeding. Okay, now moving on to the types of feeds and feeding, we'll gradually get into the subject. So, any fish, it breeds. Most of you know that they are egg-laying, and some of them are live bearers. And as far as these ornamental fishes are concerned, most of the freshwater ornamental fishes produce young ones which carry a lot of yolk with them, and that is why it is known as endogenous feeding. And the picture given there is of arowana young ones, which is a mouth-brooding fish, and the young ones are literally pulled out of their mouths because they consume quite a lot of them. So to avoid that, they are taken out, and this is how it looks like. It almost sinks at the bottom with the weight of the yolk. So the problem of the start feeding does not arise in most of the marine ornamental fishes. Whereas if you take the freshwater ornamental fishes, and if you take the marine ornamentals, it is not so. They produce larvae which are devoid of yolk, and within 2 or 3 days the mouth opens, and then all the problem starts. So that you have to feed them with the phytoplankton first, and then the live feeds of such small sizes, which would help them to grow. That is why normally you find marine ornamental fish survival in captivity when the hatchery cycle is completed will be extremely low, whereas in freshwater ornamentals, because of this advantage, survival rates are quite high. So this is the start feeding, and I have put another point there as the initial feeding is mostly from the microbiota which is present in the environment, or in these days it is known as the microbiome, which includes the virus, bacteria, as well as the fungi. Now that also serves as a feed source, and then only our phytoplankton and zooplankton act as a feed source for the young ones of these ornamental fishes, or for that matter any fish. Now moving on to the live feeds per se, you have to know a certain number of them which are commercially cultivated as well as used as live feeds in captivity in hatcheries. They are mostly live plankton, live feeds like phytoplankton, and the most common one which you have heard of, which you would have heard of, is the chlorella. The freshwater chlorella as well as the marine chlorella are very popular live feeds. Other than that, you find certain live feeds like which I have put here, like Dunaliella, which is very rich in carotenoids. And there is another chain-centric phytoplankton like Chetoceros. These chains are available, and single cells are also available. So it is just for the sake of examples I have given these two phytoplankton, pictures of these phytoplankton, and gradually moving on to the zooplankton. The one picture you see in the shape of an ice cream cup is the Brachiones, or what is popularly known as the Rotifers, and most of you would have studied that Rotifer is a minor phyla, under which this organism was considered to be a pest earlier in most of these freshwater ponds, but later on only we knew that it works as one of the best feed material for the young ones of fish. And then the next one which I have shown is Artemia, which most of you may be familiar with. So the adult Artemia is shown there. It is popularly known as the sea monkey because it swims upside down, and it does all sorts of acrobatic tricks a monkey does on a tree. And it is not actually the young, the adult Artemia which is fed. It is the Artemia nauplii which is fed to the young ones of the fish. Now these two are very popular live feeds as far as fishes are concerned, because they can be hatched at any time, giving them the appropriate conditions like salinity, light, and such conditions, if provided, it immediately hatches out, and there is a non-feeding stage which is harvested and fed to these fishes. Now, moving on to the most popular freshwater live feeds are the Moina and Daphnia, which are known as the freshwater fleas or the cladocerans. And the problem with most of these live feeds is they are not nutritionally complete as far as the young ones of this fish are concerned. That is why I have said that Daphnia contains a high level of eicosanopentyenoic acid, which is a highly unsaturated fatty acids, and the docosahexaenoic acid, which is another fatty acids. Now, these fatty acids are very important as far as marine fish are concerned, but as far as freshwater fishes are concerned, they are not so important because most of them, these fatty acids, can be synthesized by them. So, as far as marine ornamental fishes are concerned, we have to enrich these live feeds to feed them with these sort of nutrients. Now, that is a different topic altogether. I'm not going into it because it will take more and more time. So I'll stop there. Now, I was just trying to familiarize you with the different types of live feeds. So the primary source of nutrition is the microbiome, which is present in the water. And then comes the phytoplankton, which is the next level. And then comes the zooplankton, which is the next level. Now, in all these things, what you have to understand is the size. Okay, so mostly the phytoplankton or the microalgae are less than 10 microns in size. That is the mouth size of the the young fish at that point of time. And then as the fishes grow, their mouth sizes also increase. So you get these the rotifers as the next feed material which they consume. And then comes the Artemia naupliaceae. So it is from a less than 10 micron size to 100 or 150 microns. Then it moves on to 200 to 250 microns. Okay, this is the type of sizes of the live feeds which are used. Now, in case you have to replace them with a formulated feed, that is the type or the size of the feed particle which you should use. So you imagine the difficulty in bringing down feed material to that size. You need that size of grinding equipment to bring them to that size and then feed it to these fishes. And not only that, an inert material when put in water doesn't behave like a live feed. So you have to see the properties, whether it should float or whether it should slowly sink or whether it should move about in the water. Now, all these properties as well as the attractiveness of the live feeds is very important. So the similar qualities have to be imparted to any artificial material which you are trying to introduce into the water, and see that the young one of these animal feeds. Now, what I left out here is this group of animals known as copepods. They are also very important as live feeds. There are freshwater copepods as well as marine copepods. Now, the advantage with these copepods is the copepods are almost nutritionally complete for the larvae. They contain high amount of phospholipids, which contain eicosapentaenoic acid and docosahexaenoic acid, or the highly unsaturated fatty acid profile of copepods are very rich and similar. And not only that, the copepod life cycle is huge. So you get different sizes of copepodites. Okay, so these copepodites serve as good live feeds for the young ones. So in short, what I would like to say is, a young fish is born into a supermarket kind of scenario where everything is available. Only thing is, these young ones of these fishes have to go and pick and choose and feed them. So you can imagine such a scenario where the right kind of food is only accepted by the animal in question. So that is about the start nutrition, and gradually we'll move on to the another segment known as exogenous feeds, or what we feed them by producing it, or exogenous feeding. Now, when does the need for an exogenous feed arise? It arises only when the animal is not able to get its feed from the natural circumstances. Now, when does that happen? When you confine them. you confine them to an aquarium, you confine them to a tank, or you confine them to a pond, you increase them in numbers, then what happens is the natural subsidy or the God-given subsidy to these animals, they run short. That is when we try to feed them. Otherwise, they will not grow, or their growth will be subnormal. So, in order to overcome that, only we use exogenous feeds, and there are a plethora of them available for feeding. So, I have tried to classify them as wet feeds, dry feeds, and say pellets. So, in wet feeds, you get all sort of wet material which can be used. You can think of any kitchen material which can be used to feed these fishes. And in that, I have put a group called infusoria. I hope most of you would have studied that. Any decaying material in fresh water, it attracts or it breeds a group of organisms, mainly protozoans and rotifer-like organisms. This is a mixture. Now, this works as a very good feed for these ornamental fishes. So that, in short, is known as infusoria. So you look it up in Google or from your notes, you will get details of how to produce them in small quantities for feeding. Now we move on to dry feeds. Now there are different forms, as I told you, or as I put there. It is a mash. What is a mash? It is a normal consistency, or normally most of you may be familiar with cattle feed. So actually the bag in which it comes as a coarse powder, that is known as mash. Okay, there is nothing new in it. You use a type of sieve through which say 1 or 2 mm size passes through, and that is known as a mash. And then comes the flakes. Now there is a different technology which is used to produce this, that is known as drum drying technology. That is the feed material is made into a sort of soup, and it is poured over a hot drum where the water content is dried and you get flakes. Now this is how almost all the flake material is produced. Now this technology comes from the dairy industry, where before today's spray dried milk powder came, we had flakes. So it was at that era, or that technology still persists in the food industry, and that is adopted in the fish feed industry also. That is how flakes are produced. And then comes crumbles. Now what are crumbles? It is nothing but a pelletized material is further crushed and sieved to get the size. So these are known as crumbles, and they are also used as feeds. Now coming to pellets per se, there are 3 types of pellets. A slinking pellet is there, which goes down like a lead shot when put in water, and then there is a slow sinking pellet, and then there is a floating pellet. So these 3 types of pellets are produced and used in fish feeding. So it is quite a sophisticated scenario. So you have to know how all these things are produced, basically, and then where it is used. That is depending upon the feeding, behavior of the fish. You have to choose the type of feed which has to be fed. Otherwise, normally in aquaculture, especially in the culture of Indian major carps, a floating pellet is always preferred, because a floating pellet avoids wastage of feed, because in terms of cost, it is money which you are throwing into the water. So you should ensure that it is properly utilized by the fish. Otherwise, all this feed which is not fed by the fish gets accumulated at the bottom of the pond, and it either spoils the pond bottom, or it becomes it has the value of only fertilizing the ponds. Okay, these are all the simple aspects you should understand. And then moving on to still basics, I think a talk like this will not be complete if I don't touch upon the basics of nutrition. Now this, you have to have a very clear idea of the macronutrients and the micronutrients which come as the feed material. That is why I have put this slide, and I will explain it a little bit in relation with the topic which we are dealing with now. Now, it is classified as macronutrients and micronutrients based on the quantity of them available. That is, macronutrients are available in larger quantities in any feed material or food material, and micronutrients are available in very minute quantities, but they are very essential. Now, in the macronutrients category, we classify them as proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates, and in micronutrients, it is vitamins and minerals. And then comes a third category of supplements, which are known as additives also. Now, this is something which you add specifically to the feed to impart a certain quality or to derive a certain result to the from the organism which is fed. Now, obviously, here it is ornamental fish. So what we try to achieve is always the the breeding or the color of the animal, which should always maintain the color as in the natural environment. So such type of additives are used. Now, explaining a little bit about the macronutrients, let me touch upon proteins, which are essential for growth, and most of you may be knowing that they are made up of amino acids or the building blocks, and a deficiency caused will lead to the amino acid deficiency. Now, most of you know there are essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids, and what is not available from the body, or the amino acids which cannot be synthesized to the extent of the requirement of the animal, are known as essential amino acids. So obviously it has to come through food. And what are the other properties which it gives to the food is, there are several other characteristics or functions which the protein has to do other than growth, is that it gives a structural integrity to several things, like for example, I can say the bones or the scales and hair, such things are all proteins. So in fish it is mostly the scales or several other substances which are made from proteins. And to be specific, let me say all the enzymes are proteins. Then all the immunological proteins are there, and there are several hormones which are proteins. So proteins are not only growth imparting substances. It has several other roles to play in the system. So proteins are very important, as well as it is the most costly component in the feeds. Now, another point I would like to stress upon here is, now fish has evolved in an aquatic environment where carbohydrates are scarce. So what the fish does is it uses proteins as a source of energy also. That is why you find normally the requirement of proteins for aquatic organisms are higher than terrestrial animals. Okay, and if at all it requires okay, I'll put it this way. How it derives energy from proteins is, it is through a process of gluconeogenesis. I hope your teachers would have covered glycolysis as well as gluconeogenesis. But gluconeogenesis is the reverse of glycolysis. So in that reversal mechanism, there are several amino acids which enter and contribute to the energy requirement of the aquatic organisms. So I'll stop there, otherwise I'll have to get into complex biochemical processes, which is difficult in a lecture like this. Now I'll move on gradually to lipids. Again, lipids are again essential, and there are categories which are known as essential fatty acids and non-essential fatty acids, and essential fatty acids obviously have to come through food. And there are several characteristics of aquatic lipids. They are long chain lipids, and the chain elongation enzyme systems are present. Some of them are present exclusively or privy exclusively to the aquatic animals. And two of them which I mentioned are the docosahexaenoic acid and the eicosapentaenoic acid. And coming to carbohydrates, again, it's a source of energy. But what is the difference between the lipids and carbohydrates, or the source of energy available from them, is that energy available from lipids is 2.5 times more than the energy available from carbohydrates. And another difference is there is a limitation to store carbohydrates as energy, but whereas lipids can be stored as an energy source. Okay, so I will stop the macronutrient section there, and then I'll gradually move on to the micronutrient section. And first, we'll take up vitamins. Now, the importance of vitamins, most of you know. A deficiency causes deficiency diseases, and an excess will cause toxicity. Both can happen. So, a limited amount is always essential. Now, to cut short the story, I will say like this: vitamins, they are of two types. One is fat soluble, and another one is water soluble. Now, what is the advantage of fat solubility? The fat soluble vitamins can be stored in the body, whereas water soluble vitamins cannot be stored in the body. Day-to-day requirements are met from the environment, or in the case of fish, or through food, and the excess is always excreted through urine. Now, one interesting aspect you should know here is most of the B complex vitamins, okay, in an aquatic system are synthesized by the microorganisms. So, in nature, a vitamin deficiency occurring is very, very rare. Okay, so we should bear in mind that some amount of vitamins, or you can say the major amount of vitamins, will be available to the fish or to the aquatic organisms from the microbiome. And only when the intensity of the culture is very high, or the number of animals you put in a unit area of water is very high, then you need to supplement the feed with vitamins and minerals. The same is the case with minerals. Minerals also, again, the cycle is like this. You know, there is always a land and water interface. Okay, and whatever minerals are deficient in the land where you are, according to the geographical location you are, that is reflected in the animals and plants you find there, because from the land it is absorbed by the plants, and whatever is absorbed by the plants is available to the animals. Now, in this cycle, whatever is deficient in the soil is always reflected on the animals also. So that sort of a situation always exists. So in conditions like Kerala, where the soil is almost acidic everywhere, there are deficiencies of certain minerals, and there is an excess of certain minerals. Now, I am not going into the details of that. So normally, mineral supplementation and vitamin supplementation in feed is made usually to overcome a deficiency situation. Now, one more point I would like to add here is in connection with the vitamins is that in aquatic organisms, I told you, normally a B complex vitamin deficiency or a fat soluble vitamin deficiency does not occur. But the only deficiency which can occur in vitamins is of vitamin C, because vitamin C cannot be synthesized by the aquatic organisms, or the enzyme systems are not there in these aquatic animals. So normally there is a supplementation required there. That is why we have now water stable vitamin C available. Okay, and that is the type of vitamin which is used to supplement in fish feeds. So I stop there as far as the basics are concerned, and coming to additives and supplements, I'll tell here only as far as these ornamental fishes are concerned. The most required additive is an additive which will maintain the color of these ornamental fishes. Now, for that, normally carotenoids are used, which are available in different colors. And the most popular supplement which is used to maintain color is spirulina, because it contains a lot of carotenoids, or which is a cheaper source compared to otherwise carotenoids. If you want to buy mixed carotenoids, cost almost 10,000 rupees a kg, whereas spirulina will cost only 1/3 of less than 3,000 rupees a kg. So usually spirulina is used as a carotenoid supplement to enhance the color of the ornamental fish. Okay, with that, I'll close our discussion on basics of nutrition, and then we'll gradually move on to a little bit of applied aspects. This is one thing which you should really understand. What is meant by proximate composition? Now, that is why I told you regarding the basics. Now, having understood the basics, now when you look up the nutrient facts, or I do not say you have to read the fish feed packet. You read the nutritional information given on a packet of Lay's or kurkure which you eat. There is a composition table given there. Now you should be able to understand what is written there. That is the purpose. So in animal feeds, it is shown as proximate composition. What do you mean by proximity? Proximity is closeness. It is somewhat proximal. That means that it is not the exact information which is provided. It gives you an approximate information of what is contained in that. So in order to understand that, it can be explained this way. Any material, either manufactured feed, food, or fish feed, whatever you take, it contains moisture. Okay, so the first classification is that dry matter and moisture. Now, dry matter contains all the organic material or the nutrients, whereas the moisture or water, does it contain any nutrients? No. It is only a dietary essential which does not contain any nutrition. Okay, it is devoid of any nutrition. It does not contain energy also. So energy is also zero, no nutrients. It is pure water, but it is a dietary essential. So a particular amount of moisture is there in any feed material you touch. Okay, now only problem is the quantity of moisture. Then the moisture content in any material exceeds 10%, it is not storable. That is the point. So if moisture is there, then you have to go for storage techniques like freezing or chilling, or such type of technologies have to be adopted to control bacterial growth or microbial growth and prevent spoilage. So that is the importance of moisture here. Now coming to the organic fraction, it contains proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates, whereas in the inorganic portion, it is the minerals and salts. Okay. Now, having made this clear, this is how the feed composition table appears. So when you look at the table, it will give you acronyms or short forms like CP, EE, CF. Now, this is what it means. It means crude protein. So, the next is ether extract or the fat component. It is written as ether extract because all the fat is extracted using a solvent called petroleum ether. And then comes crude fiber, which is also again chemically estimated. And then how is ash estimated? Ash is simply estimated by burning the feed material in an apparatus known as muffled furnace, where the temperature goes as high as 700 degrees Celsius. Now, when you do that, you will get the mineral content. Now, having arrived at all these four components, what we do is simply subtract it from 100 to get the nitrogen-free extract component, or which will give you an indication of the soluble carbohydrates present in it, or which is the carbohydrate content. Now, in Malayalam, it is dhanyagam, and it is not starch. Starch is something else. Starch in the area. ധാന്യത്തിൽ അടങ്ങിയിരിക്കുന്നതാണ് ധാന്യം. സ്റ്റാർച്ച് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് എനിക്ക് പെട്ടെന്ന് മലയാളം കിട്ടുന്നില്ല. ഓക്കെ, now we'll gradually move to the classification of feedstuffs. Okay, now our final aim is to make feed. So before we go into that, you have to understand what are the material at your disposal for making the feed. Now, this is how the classification goes. It is broadly classified into these two groups, that is material of plant origin or vegetable origin, and animal, aquatic or marine origin. So this is the basic classification, and then I have put the different groups, that is cereals, pulses, oil seeds, and the last one is non-conventional feed resources. What does it mean? This simply means, this is not my classification. It is done by Food and Agriculture Organization. They call it as NCFR. These are the material which are not conventionally used as feed, but nowadays they are used as food and feed, giving some treatments to them. Like, for example, if you, I can say tapioca leaf, conventionally it is not fed to cattle. Nowadays it is fed to cattle. How is it fed to cattle? It is dried, it is sun dried, so that it removes the toxic material known as cyanogen glucosides in it, and then it can be fed. Otherwise, the animals will die. Okay, so such material are known as non-conventional feed material, and you get plenty of them. Mostly tree leaves are used for feeding livestock, whereas in in aquatic animals also there are several non-conventional material which are used to feed them. Now coming to the animal protein component, the best animal protein source which you can use to feed a fish is fish meal, and then come the crustacean meals like shrimp meal and squilla meal, several other crab meal, several things are there. Then molluscan meals, this can be used as a good fish feed ingredient. And now all that is known to you. Now I have put another category there known as rendered animal protein. What is that? That is another material which is not conventionally fed, so it can be put under the non-conventional feed resource. Now this is a material which is processed and used. Now the best example is your poultry waste. Now whatever waste is generated in the slaughter of poultry birds can be dried and rendered, cooked, oil is removed and rendered. Now rendering plants is a huge industry. It is a you need investment in crores to run a rendering plant. There is one nearby here at Alua, which collects the entire poultry waste generated by one city, Ernakulam, and processed and converted into poultry oil and poultry meal. So this can be used as an animal protein source. So several things like slaughterhouse byproducts, several material are converted and used as aquatic animal feeds. Of course, there are several ethical issues involved in it. I am not going into it. Once upon a time, you would have heard about the mad cow disease, which is traced back to feeding this rendered animal protein to dairy cattle. So you can look it up in the Google or anywhere. You will find very, very interesting stories regarding feeding rendered animal protein to domesticated animals. Now, leaving it there, let me point out to these two resources in the web. One is feedipedia.org. Okay, it's an intergovernmental website where you can go and check for any feed material, for all its composition, source, quantity available. All information is available there, like the Wikipedia. Wikipedia answers most of your questions like that. There is a Feedipedia. So in Feedipedia, you can find out all these things, and I put the participating organizations in it. INRA, CAR, DAF, NFA, all intergovernmental and international organizations fund this venture, and this is available worldwide. So wherever you are unable to get hold of analytical information, you can go to this site and take the information available there. That will be an approximate information. Otherwise, actually, if you want analytical information, you have to source the material which you are going to use and send it to a reputed laboratory and get it analyzed. Otherwise, you will not get the correct approximate composition information. Now, where you can get it analyzed is one is you can come to CMFRI, or you can go to CIFT, where it is a paid service, or the best service is available from a place called the Animal Feed Quality Control Laboratory, which is run by the Tamil Nadu Veterinary University at Namakkal. Okay, they have a laboratory which will give you results within 24 hours, and the prices are also very, very nominal. You can send the samples around 200 to 250 grams by post, and within 24 hours you will get the results of the approximate composition. And they also provide information on certain toxins also, like aflatoxin, which is very important in poultry nutrition. Okay, that is how you source your feed stuff, and how you analyze them, how you can generate such information for your use. Now, gradually moving on to the next requirement for feed making is the nutritional requirements. Now, this is known as nutritional requirements in livestock and you can say cattle, poultry, fish, or any animal. Now, it is known as recommended dietary allowances for human beings. Now, that data is generated by National Institute of Nutrition, which is there in Hyderabad. Okay, now that information is also available in the net. So, for a person who is doing physical work, what is the protein requirement, what is the energy requirement, and how much of animal protein that man should eat, how much of vegetable protein that man should eat. Now, all this information is available in the net, and you can even suggest diet plans to such people. Now, that is what exactly the nutrition and dietetics people who sit in hospitals tell you. Suppose you are a diabetic patient, now the type of nutrition or the nutritional plan you should follow is all based on such recommended dietary allowances for human beings. Now, leaving that apart, I come to the fish again. Here it is known as nutritional requirements. Now, this is generated by internationally by several organizations, and the most famous is known as the National Research Council of USA, where the NRC requirements are available. Now, that is also available on the net. Now, there is another website known as this IAFFD.com, from where you can get this information. But let me tell you here, this is mostly available only for the farmed fishes, not for ornamental fish. So the scientific information generated is not to the extent of compiling and collating it into an information like this. So most of it is still lying in the primary information level, that is at the research paper level. It may be available in some reviews also, but it has not come to the level of textbooks and repositories like Nutritional Research Council repositories. So to cut short that there, and let me come to the salient features of the nutritional requirements of these animals. As I mentioned earlier, they are very high at larval and juvenile phases because the growth is faster, and it decreases as the growth progresses. And the requirements are special for brood fishes or the fish which you are trying to breed. And pond productivity, as I mentioned earlier, as nature's subsidy, is very crucial in avoiding feed wastage. And feeding frequency and feeding rates are also very, very important. Okay, that is in short regarding the nutritional requirements. Otherwise, if you want to go in specifically into nutritional requirements, you will find information like this available for different species. It varies. Okay. For guppy, it is something different. For goldfish, it is different. So all these things are available in research papers, and a few of them I've compiled. And the last one here, the honey Gourami, is the work done by us at Singapore when I was there. And this is a publication which has come out in the World Aquaculture Society. That's the name of the Journal of the World Aquaculture Society. It was published. And there we found out that this honey Gourami needs only 30% protein and 6% fat for their normal maintenance in an aquarium. Whereas if you're trying to breed them, it requires more protein, 40% protein and 6% fat. Now that level of feeding is required to breed them. Okay, so such information is scattered all over the net. You can search for a simple fish like a swordtail, which is known as Siphophorus ellery, and you will get all the information from the net. So that is how you find out the requirements of the fishes. Or if you are trying to make feed for a particular species of fish, okay, then you have to search for such information and then formulate your feed accordingly and then try to make it. Now that is in short regarding the requirements. So we touched upon the feed material, its proximate composition, and then the requirement. And now we'll gradually move on to a little bit of formulation. I cannot go into in detail. Those of who want details can contact me. I'm very happy to share details. Okay. I will gradually move on to the feed formulation techniques. I can just mention them and move on. Otherwise, going into details will be difficult in a lecture like this. The simplest method is known as the Pearson square method. I'll give you details of that. Then comes the hit and trial method, and then comes the linear programming. Now, what happens is it is a complex scenario. Suppose you are mixing two ingredients, say fish meal, which contains 50% protein or 60% protein, with an ingredient like wheat or rice bran, which contains only 10% protein. Now, if you are mixing 50% of that, only 50% of the protein content of the fish meal will come, and 50% of the protein content of the wheat bran or rice bran will come. So 50% of fish meal protein means 25% protein, and 50% of rice bran, suppose it contains 11 or 12% protein, it is only 6%. So that mixture will give you a protein content of only 36%. So this is the simplest scenario in feed formulation. Now, you imagine you are using, say, 5 ingredients at different levels. Then the entire scenario changes. Now, what is the solution? The solution is absolutely mathematical. So that is why all these computer softwares have come into play. So now I'll show you how a Pearson square is done. This will be the most popular method which you would have come across. You know, you're using only 2 ingredients and you plug it into a rectangular, rectangle like this. On the left-hand side, you will get the protein content of rice bran or wheat bran, whichever you're using, and this is GNOC is groundnut oil cake, and then you subtract them diagonally, ignoring the figures, and then I have given how the calculations go about, and then you get a mixture here, okay? And out of this, you can find that you are trying to make a 35% protein containing mixture, and how it is done. That is, you use you will get 66% protein from groundnut oil cake, and the remaining 33% or 66% groundnut oil cake is mixed with 33% of rice bran to get a protein mixture of 35%. Now, this is one of the simplest scenarios. I will share this the PowerPoint presentation with your faculty members. You can use them, and if you want additional information, you can contact me. I will give you, or you can simply search the net. You will get ready-made softwares available to do such calculations. Now, leaving that and not getting into the complexities of feed formulation, I'll give you a simple formula which can be adopted in general for feeding any ornamental fish, okay, which will contain around 30-35% protein. Now, it is something like this. You have to use an animal protein source, which can be a fish meal, shrimp meal, or any molluscan meal, and another 30% of a vegetable protein source, which can be soy, groundnut oil cake, cotton, or any oil seed cake can be used. But try to use a defatted cake, okay, where the oil content is removed. And then comes another 30% of a starch source. And when you mix it, it works out to almost 90% of the composition. You see here, I have given it as percent inclusion. So all calculations are out of 100. So 90% of the mixture is like that. And then you can add 5% oil. It can be either a fish oil source, it is the best, or a vegetable oil source. Even palm oil can be used, no problem. But a good vegetable oil source is a groundnut oil cake. I mean, groundnut oil is a good source because it contains a lot of unsaturated fatty acids. Now, coming to the micronutrients, you can use a vitamin mixture and a mineral mixture. I have put the one or two brand names of the vitamin mixtures which are available. One is Sublimite M from Sarabai Chemicals, I believe, and Cobodex Forte is a multivitamin tablet which is available from a pharmacy, where you can break open the tablet and use that powder as a vitamin mixture. And there are several mineral supplements available, either for veterinary, aqua, or any application. A good vitamin mixture can be used. And as I mentioned, an additive in the case of ornamental fish can be spirulina, the best, or carotenoids, if available, can be used, or paprika oleoresin. You come from an area where synthite and plant lipids are there, so they produce a lot of oleoresins from spices. And paprika is nothing but your what do you call that, Shimla mirch, or what is known as okay. I hope you understand that that huge chili, which is used in mostly in the chili chicken. Okay, that is known as the paprika. Now, paprika, what you find here is green in color. There is orange colored paprika. There is a yellow colored paprika. So, a paprika oleoresin, which is orange colored, is used by us in our Varna series of ornamental fish feeds. Now, that can be also used. Now, you see the percentage. It is less than 1%. All these things put together, it is less than, very minute quantity only can be used because they are highly concentrated. Spirulina, of course, you can use up to 1%, but whereas carotenoids and paprika oleoresins, you can use very little quantity. Now, another additive or supplement which I would suggest you to use is an antifungal and an antioxidant, because ornamental fish feeds, we use very minute quantity to feed them. Okay, maybe a pinch. Now, such a feed has to last over a year or so. So what you should prevent fungal growth in that. So you can use an antifungal agent. Okay, there are several antifungal agents available, and sodium metabisulfate, sodium benzoate, several things are there which are used in pickles in human food industry. They can be used. And antioxidants, there are several available like BHT, EHT, several antioxidants are available. So such antioxidants can be also used, and I think most of you know our Karivepila is also a good antioxidant. Okay. Now, moving on to the feed making technology. Let me summarize it here. What I will be showing you is a homemade feed making method. So it can be a dough ball, it can be a mash, or it can be a cold pellet. And the commercial technologies are steam pelleting using a universal pellet cooker, and then comes extrusion, which is the most sophisticated or the state-of-the-art technology. And there is another technology which is used, known as the fat coating. I'll come into that later. So let me explain here dough ball and things like that. These are all things which you can do using a what do you call, kitchen equipment. In simple terms, വീട്ടില് ഈ മുറുക്കും ഇടിയപ്പം ഒക്കെ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന അതേ ടെക്നിക്ക് തന്നെയാണ്. ഇതെല്ലാം മിക്സ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് we make them into a good dough or a consistency of making it into, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു സേവനാഴി കൂടെ പിഴിഞ്ഞാൽ കിട്ടാവുന്ന കൺസിസ്റ്റൻസിയിൽ മിക്സ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് പെല്ലറ്റൈസ് ചെയ്ത് ഡ്രൈ ചെയ്തെടുക്കുന്ന രീതിയാണ് ഈ ഡോ ബോൾ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ മാഷ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കോൾഡ് പെല്ലറ്റിംഗ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. പക്ഷെ ഇതിൽ വേറൊരു സ്റ്റേജ് വരുന്നത്, ദിസ് ഹാസ് ടു ബി കുക്ക്ഡ്. അപ്പൊ നിങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന ഈ മാവ് പ്രഷർ കുക്കറിൽ വെയിറ്റ് ഇടാതെ ഒരു 15 നിമിഷം സ്റ്റീം ചെയ്യുന്നത് നന്നായിരിക്കും. കാരണം why I would suggest that is steaming involves cooking. So any food material, when cooked, the digestibility increases. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ദഹ്യത എന്ന് പറയില്ലേ, instead of raw consumption, to increase the digestibility, if you can cook the material for 15 to 20 minutes in steam, what do you call, it makes the nutrients more bioavailable to these animals. Okay, that is why cooking is involved in most of these aquatic feed making technologies. Now all this is put into machines like steam pelletizer or in an extrusion machine. Now extrusion is nothing but steam pelletization, which is more sophisticated, where we use a screw through which this feed material passes, and that screw is heated either using heaters or with steam. Now this technology has basically come from industrial extrusions like plastic and aluminum extrusions into the food extrusion, and the best example of extruded food is your noodles. Okay, and another one is your kurkure, which is again an extruded product. Now only thing is it is fried and it is given a masala coating also. That is why it becomes tasty. Now the application of such extruded products is more in European countries and America, because they do not have hot breakfast like us. നമ്മളെ മാതിരി ഈ ഇഡ്ഡലിയും പുട്ടും ഇടിയപ്പം ഒന്നും ഉണ്ടാക്കി കഴിക്കാറില്ല. They use always this cornflakes, അങ്ങനത്തെ സാധനങ്ങളാണ്. അതെല്ലാം extruded products ആണ്. Okay, so extrusion is a widespread technique used for producing breakfast cereals in most of the developed countries where the market is also huge. Now, coming to another point which I put there is fat coating. Now, this is a technique which is specifically used in food and feed because there is a certain amount of fat which can be incorporated in the formulation level. After that, you have to give an overcoating. That is, if the fat content, the internal fat content is more than 6%, then the fat incorporation into that mix is not possible. So we have to give an overcoating of fat. So that is given in a fat coat. Now, the problem with aquatic feeds is, suppose you are feeding a fish like salmon in a cold country where the fat requirement is touching 30%. How will you add such fat into the feed? Now, that is done using a vacuum coater. That is, the fat is impregnated into a pellet using a vacuum environment, then where the fat enters into all the fissures and pores of an extruded pellet, and even if you put it into the water, the fat will not ooze out. So there are several fat coating technologies which are adopted in feed making. So I'm not going into the details, I just mentioned it so that you know that there is a technology like that. Now, this is the simple setup which is used for making a feed at home or at farm level. You know, you need a pulverizing equipment. Now, at home, you can use your domestic mixer, or the kitchen mixer can be used to powder the ingredients. And this is a small food mixer. Now, such mixers are available in the market. Suppose you are a baking hobbyist. Suppose you are interested in making baking cakes at home. You can have a mixer like this. It has got several attachments which can be used to mix this. And this is the pelletizer. Now, such pelletizers can be hand operated, motor operated, power operated, all are there. It can be available in your kitchen utensil selling shops. It is mostly used for in Brahmin household for grinding roasted coffee. Okay, so such a coffee mixer or coffee grinder can be used or converted into a pelletizer if you use the right size of die. And this is how a pellet is extruded. And now all these pictures are from a consultancy project which we did for Marine Products Export Development Authority at Port Blair, where they have a domesticated shrimp project where they wanted to make feeds in-house because it's a 100% biosecure project. So they don't want any material coming from outside their facility. So in order to make it biosecure, they wanted to make their own feeds, and shrimp feeds can be easily made in such a system because shrimp feeds are sinking feeds. So only for floating feeds and slow sinking feeds you need extruders. Now this is the type of material which will come out if your mix is proper and your extrusion or pelletization is proper. Now this is the cost involved in such type of material which is used. Now you can reduce it also, okay, if you source cheaper utensils. Now I have given step by step how to go about making the feed. So you can get a copy of this from your faculty member and use it. Okay. ഇപ്പോഴാണ് ആ വാക്കിന്റെ ഇത് കിട്ടിയത്. സ്റ്റാർച്ചിന് നമ്മൾ പൊതുവെ മലയാളത്തിൽ അന്നജം എന്ന് പറയും. ഓക്കെ, അത് നല്ല മലയാളത്തിൽ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഭാഷാ ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ടുകാരുടെ മലയാളത്തിൽ ധാന്യത്തിൽ അടങ്ങിയിരിക്കുന്ന എല്ലാത്തിനെയും ധാന്യകം എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. അങ്ങനെ ഒരു വേർതിരിവും കൂടിയാണ് കേട്ടോ. ആൻഡ് ഇതില് മറ്റേ കൊളസ്ട്രോളും അതും ഇതൊക്കെ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതൊക്കെ ഈ ഷ്രിംപ് ഫീഡിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ടുള്ളതാണ്. അത് ഫിഷ് ഫീഡ്സിന് ആവശ്യമില്ല. അപ്പൊ ഇതില് സ്റ്റെപ്പ് ബൈ സ്റ്റെപ്പ് ഐ ഹാവ് മെൻഷൻ ഹൗ ടു ഗോ അബൌട്ട് ഡൂയിങ് ഇറ്റ്. അപ്പൊ അത് പ്രകാരം നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ചെയ്യാം. അതില്ലാതെ ഐ വിൽ ഷെയർ വൺ മോർ പബ്ലിക്കേഷൻ വിത്ത് ഡോക്ടർ സുഷ. that is from CIBA, or the Central Institute of Brackish Water Aquaculture in Chennai. They have brought out a small pamphlet during the COVID period to make feeds at home. Okay, it is a small PDF. I can share that also with you. That is also very well described how to make feed at home. So you can use that also. Okay. Either way. Now coming to the further complications in this fish feed business, I think I have overshot the time. Anyway, I'll rush through. These are the complexities involved in the feed particle size, which I mentioned in the beginning of the lecture itself, that you have to feed the fish with the appropriate size. Okay, so in general, we can say that you can use a 40% or 25% or even 30-35% is sufficient for routine feeding, and a higher protein level is required if you are feeding brood stock. And these are the type of ingredients which are normally used in feeds, marine feeds or in fish feeds. These are all very good attractions also. So normally, what you get as colored granules in the market, they are made to attract you only. They are not nutritionally complete, or they are not nutritionally good quality wise. Now, quality ingredients has to be used to produce very good fish feeds, for which you have to use such material. Now, coming to another group of feeds known as functional feeds. Now, these feeds are, as I mentioned, in this case, the functionality we require is the color maintenance. So for that, these are the material which are used. Now, they are known as functional feeds. What function it imparts? So these are the material which is used. Carophil pink is the trade name. It is basically astaxanthin, and canthaxanthin is sold as carophil red. Now, these are all extremely expensive, around 50,000 to 60,000 rupees per kg in the international market. So it is all beyond our beyond our reach. So we can go for such material like paprika oleoresin, which is only 600 or 6,000 to 7,000 rupees a kg. But you see the quantity used is very little, 150 milligrams per kg can be used. Or algal biomass, as I told you. Spirulina is one good source, or you will get chlorella, dried chlorella is available, or a red colored yeast known as Hematococcus. This is also available. Okay, so these are the alternatives which can be used. Now, this is the difference. Over a period of time, suppose you are maintaining highly brightly colored fishes like this, for over a period of time, it may fade. So to avoid that only, we use such type of material in feeding the ornamental fish. Now, this is the reason, or the functional ingredients behind the coloration, mostly carotenoids. And I hope most of you know carrots, most of you know, are the richest source of carotenoids. Okay. Other than that, what are the richest sources of carotenoids which we use are the chilies. The red chilies are the most rich ones, and the green chilies they all contain a lot of carotenoids. And these are the functional material which impart the color. Melanophores for black, xanthophores for yellow, erythrophores for red, and leucophores for silvery color. So fish are incapable of de novo carotenoid synthesis, and some fish can convert zeaxanthin to astaxanthin. I think I'm getting too technical here. Anyway, I'll tell you one simple example for your knowledge. Have you noticed the difference of color in buffalo milk and cow milk? Cow milk will be slightly yellowish in color. That is because cow secretes carotenoids as such. That is why you get a slightly yellowish tinge to cow milk. And if you take buffalo milk will be milky white, pure white in color. That is because buffaloes convert carotene, beta carotene, into 2 units of vitamin A and secretes it as vitamin A. That is why the color difference comes. Okay, such simple examples are there in nature. So you may find several others if you search. Okay, and there is another group of compounds known as anthocyanins. These are also, again, most of our fruits and vegetables, brightly colored fruits and vegetables are so well colored because of these materials which are known as anthocyanins. Now, up to a certain period of time, it was thought that anthocyanins are not being synthesized in the or cannot be utilized by fish. But of late, it has been proven that anthocyanins can be also used by fishes to impart color to several of their organs, even the eggs. Okay. Now, coming to some of the natural material which can be used as color imparting agents in fish feeds are China rose or our shoe flower, and these are all information I have picked up from research papers. Almost 5 grams per kg of dry powder can impart color, or marigold petals can impart color, or lutein or zeaxanthin you can buy, and it can be used as low as 50 milligrams per kg. These are also what you call cheaper alternatives which can be used for your fish feeding purposes or to incorporate into your feed formulations. Now, again, coming back to the feed technology, let me at the outset tell you there are 2 types of feeds. One is known as micro diets. Now, most of the ornamental fishes are fed with micro diets. That is because കേൾക്കാമോ?
കേൾക്കാം സാറേ, കേൾക്കാം.
ഇവിടെയല്ലേ പോയത്?
അതെ സാറേ, ഈ സ്ലൈഡ് വെച്ച് സാറിന്റെ ശബ്ദം നിന്നുപോയി, പിന്നെ സാറിന് ലെഫ്റ്റ് ആയി പോയി.
Okay, I'm sorry, there was a problem with the connectivity. I hope most of you can hear me now. Again, coming back to feed technology, these are the types of feeds, and I was telling you about the micro diets. Now, the micro diets consist of the entire range starting from less than 10 micron size, that is the size of the phytoplankton, to 1.2 mm size. Now, these type of feeds has to be produced using a micro extrusion technique, which is known as meromerization also, or it is known as spheronization. Now, other than this, there are several other micro feeds which are known as micro-bound diets, micro-coated diets, and micro-encapsulated diets, which are used in larval feeding of both fish and shrimp. So I'm not going into the details. I am only trying to stress upon the fact that the type of feeds which we are using for feeding ornamental fish come under the category of micro diets, which ranges from a 10 micron particle to a less than 10 micron particle to a 1.2 or 1.5 mm size pellet or sphere. Okay, now this is how the crumbling of pellets is done. As I told you, extrusion, there are two types of extruders. There is a single screw extruder and a twin screw extruder. Normally, a twin screw extruder is used for producing micro diets for ornamental fishes, and the pellets produced are then crumbled or, using a spheronizer, converted into spheres. Now, at home, when you are making it, there is no other way. You may get big pellets. Now, these pellets have to be crushed in a mixie. Again in a mixie, you have to crush them and then sieve it out into different sizes which you want. You use different types of sieves and sieve them out. Now, all these things I could have shown you if you can come here, or one day if you plan to come to CMFRI, you can see all these things. We have an automatic sieve shaker for this, which we have designed ourselves, or you can go for manual sieving also. Now, this is the mechanism of spheronization, how a sphere is formed. As I told you, the spheronizer is a piece of equipment which works like our hands. Now, if there is dirt in hand, and when you rub it in opposite direction, what happens is all the dirt forms into a sphere between our hands, isn't it? Between our palm. Now, this technique of two plates running in opposite direction with different types of serrations is known as meromerization or spheronization. Now, the technique in which a pellet becomes a sphere is shown here. This is how first it becomes a dumbbell, and then two spheres form, and then these spheres separate into two different entities. Now, this is how a sphere formation takes place, or what you find in the market as spheres is used or is produced using a spheronization equipment. Now, before I close, these are some of the qualities of the fish feed which you should bear in mind. Always, you should bear in mind that the feed which you make should be attractable to the fish. Now, what you find in the market is to attract you. That is why they have given different types of colors. Now, they use food colors, they use synthetic colors. Several types of material is used to produce a pellet with different colors to attract you first, and then they forget about the the fish, because their primary purpose or primary intent is to sell. So instead of that, when we do it in a scientific way, we should see that the feed you make contains the nutrients required by the fish in sufficient quantities, plus the color imparting material is also added into it. So the fish, when it is introduced into the water, immediately the fish should start feeding on it. That is the first test for the attractability of the feed which you make. Now, the energy content in it should be able to support its basic energy requirement, that is the normal growth and functions should be able to be supported by the feed which you are providing. The proteins which you incorporated in should be of high quality. That is why we use very high quality material like fish, squid, shrimp, or even if you are using soya, the soy flour which is used for human consumption purposes is known as defatted toasted soy flour. Now this is available in the market. If you go to the supermarkets, you can procure soy flour which costs almost 100 rupees a kg. Now that is the type of material which should be used. Okay, and the fat content should be below 10% because the feed should not become rancid. Now to prevent rancidity only, I was telling you regarding adding an antioxidant and an antifungal in the feed. Now another point I would like to stress is the feeding rate. Now normally the feeding rate or the ration meant for a fish is the quantity of feed it requires over a period of 24 hours. Now this can be easily estimated by feeding it in pinches. Now these pinches can be measured and then they can be divided into 2 equal doses or 3 equal doses and fed by hand, or you can use automatic feeders also to feed them. So the thumb rule here is normally any vertebrate organism, if it is fully grown, I'm not telling about the larval stages and the juvenile phases where the growth rate is very high. Normally an adult consumes around 2.5 to 3% of its body weight of dry material, any vertebrate animal. This you can check for yourself. Now that is the quantity. So normally for fishes we feed in small pinches, and these small pinches can be measured and a daily dose can be arrived at, and that can be fed over in divided doses over a period of 24 hours. Now that is what I have mentioned. It can be divided into 2 doses and fed. Now this is all I wish to share with you for the day, and I will share with you the leaflet which I was talking about, which is a very good source of literature for making feeds at home. That is done by Central Institute of Brackish Water Aquaculture. And if at all anybody is interested in formulation, they can contact me. I can share with you some Excel sheets and techniques, and there is a diet formulator also is available, which can be used for formulating feeds. Otherwise, normally we go for that 1/3 of an animal protein source and then 1/3 of a vegetable protein source and a third of a starch source, and then mix it with all the additives, all the vitamins, minerals, and a little bit of fat, and then you add a little bit of antioxidant and an antifungal. Then you can simply gelatinize the starch, mix all the other material, and make it into a kitchen noodle, and then dry it and crumble it to the different sizes which you need and use it as a feed. Thank you very much. I think we have overshot the time quite a lot, and I'll be happy to answer your questions if any. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This webinar is now open for discussion. I request the participants of this session to kindly make use of the hand raise option available at the bottom of your Google Meet window.
Okay, please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. My name is Anu,
Okay.
and I am a research scholar from SD College, Alapi.
Okay.
I got the link from my guide, Dr. G. Nagendra Prabhu, and I am currently working on the development of fish and duck feed from water hyacinth. So my question is that most of the fish feed giants are from Thailand or from Japan or US, and there are no much known industries in India or in Kerala. So what is the reason? Have you analyzed? And is there the potential for India or Kerala to become such a good producer of fish feed?
Okay. Very interesting question. Since you are in the field, it is but natural to think like that. Yes. See, the situation is like this. The major market in India for fish feed is shrimp. Clear? Shrimp is the major
Yes, sir.
activity which is going on in India, which earns foreign exchange for this. So all the international companies are here with their shrimp feed. Like CP is the biggest, is the leader. CP feeds, and they have a factory in Chennai. Okay, that is the first segment. Then comes fish feeds. Now in fish feeds, what has happened is the bulk of our aquaculture production is from Indian major crops. Okay. Now what was happening was the farmers were feeding them an equal mixture of groundnut oil cake and rice bran or wheat bran, 50-50. They simply mix it, fill it in a bag, and try to put it in the pond. So that in the pond, the fish feeds through the perforations which are made into it. All these things are very well documented. Now later on, what happened is the American Soybean Association people came into India. They propagated floating feeds, and thus, knowing the advantage, they used several feed demonstrations to tell the farmers how what are the advantages of floating feed, how you can avoid wastage, and based on that, some 15 extruded feed plants have come up in Andhra Pradesh. You know, the Bhimavaram is the place where all this aquaculture is happening. So in and around Bhimavaram, you have around 13 to 15 extruded feed plants which produce fish feeds, floating fish feeds exclusively for this sector. Now in that itself, 50% is an overcapacity. That is, they have already foreseen the growth of aquaculture in India in double digits. So there will be a demand. Based on that, at present, there is a 50% overcapacity. So their mills are functioning only at a 50% level. So floating fish feeds for farming is available. Now, coming to your question on feed for these micro feeds, especially in Kerala, nobody is there. Not only in Kerala, in India, nobody has invested in micro feed plants because the output from micro feed plants, suppose you are investing about 10 crores for a farmed fish feed plant. The output is, it can go up to 12 tons per hour, 10 to 12 tons per hour production capacity. Whereas the same investment, if you make for producing a micro feed, the output is around 300 to 500 kg per hour. So what is happening is these feeds are expensive. They are slow moving. They sell in lower quantities. So the major giant people who have invested in it are all abroad. From there, these products are imported into India and traded at extremely high margins. Suppose the product costs only $1 or $2 there, they bring it here and sell it for 3,000 to 4,000 rupees. So importing and trading appears to be a better option to the businessman rather than installing a plant in India. Now, what is happening now is, I think you know about the Prime Minister's Matsya Sampada Yojana. Have you heard about it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, there are a lot of investment is happening, or the government is giving 40% subsidy for most of these type of entrepreneurs. And that is how now gradually some 4 or 5 people have evinced interest in establishing feed plants in Kerala. Now that is going on now, and it is at a the detailed project report stage. And they have approached us also for consultation and things like that. So that is how I know that there are entrepreneurs who have shown interest and they are trying to establish it. And a market survey is already done, and it is all there. Now, to tell you frankly, there is only one major producer for ornamental fish feeds in India, that is known as Teo. That is a company based in Chennai. Now, that fellow is producing as well as exporting. So his major market is export market. Now, these companies which are trying to establish their feed plants in Kerala are mainly for ornamental fish and for farm fish. So in the near future, I think that 1 or 2 plants will come up in Kerala also. Have I answered you, or have I complicated you?
No, sir, you answered it. It's clear, sir. Thank you so much.
Will a combination of live feed... Oh, sorry, I could not read it. The chat will open. What was the question? Okay. I didn't get the question.
Sir, I will read it out.
Please.
Sir, will the combination of live feed and pellet feed be more effective for breeding fishes or liveliness?
See, co-feeding can be effective. That is usually done for broodstock, not for normal growth purposes, because it spoils water. Co-feeding is usually done for broodstock rearing because there are certain feed material like the fish roe. Do you know what is fish roe? Eggs of fish are known as roe technically. Okay, when you go to the fish market, you can collect it from the boys who dress the fish. You will get it for 100 rupees a kg. Now that is very rich in phospholipids. Now that can be given as feed. Now it is a wet material, but when you feed it to the other farmed fish and all, it will not work out. It is not economical. So co-feeding is advisable only in broodstock management, not in normal aquarium scenario or in a grow out scenario. Is that clear? Did I answer you, or you need further clarification? You please put on your mic, then only I'll hear. Most of your mics are muted.
Emilio, please answer.
Okay. Okay, your question is very clear. Be more effective in breeding. Yes, it is mainly for broodstock. For breeding purposes, a co-feeding strategy is always advisable because dry feeds may not be as effective as wet feeds. Any more questions? What are the basic nutritional specifications you should take care to maintain the body color of fish? Body color of fish. See, this the color fading problem happens normally in an aquarium scenario, not in a pond or in a tank. If your water is green enough, if there is enough phytoplankton in the medium, the coloration will not be a problem. But when phytoplankton is missing in an aquarium scenario, then you have to give them carotenoids. Now that is possible only through feeds. Now in feeds, you can add 1% or even less than that. Spirulina, I showed you the different options to do it. There are several ways to do it, and the cheapest source, I believe, is spirulina. Or, as I told you, they have tried shoe flower dry petals or marigold petals. That I have shown you the quantity to be incorporated. They all work as good color enhancement agents in feeds. Am I clear? Thank you.
Is there any more questions or doubts?
Anyway, Dr. Susha, I will share that pamphlet for the benefit of the students, which they can use. And if any of them are interested in more information, they can contact me. You can give my email ID or even my phone number. I don't mind, because I am retired. I'm free most of the time, so I can answer them. Thank you, Susha.
Okay, sir. Okay. Joel.
As we realize there are no more doubts to be discussed, I request Mr. Joel Johnson, Joint Secretary of Zoology Association, Department of Zoology, to express the vote of thanks.
Good evening, all. My duty is to express the voice of gratitude to everyone who has joined us here today on behalf of the Zoology Association of St. Peter's College, Kolenchery. It's been a purposeful evening for all of us here today to seek and learn the various sides of fish feeding methods and techniques. So I'd like to begin by thanking our research person, Dr. Vijayagopal sir, who have imparted us his vast knowledge and gave an insight to the fish feeding techniques and methods. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to express my gratitude to our beloved principal, Dr. Shaju Agi sir, who have encouraged us with his valuable presence and well wishes. I thank Dr. Shaju sir for his presence. Now, I would like to thank our head of the department, Dr. Shruta ma'am, for helping us to organize this workshop with its purposeful and very effectiveness. I express my sincere gratitude for your continuous support on behalf of the students of St. Peter's College.
Thank you, Joel.
I thank the faculty members of Zoology Department, Dr. Aruneyu, Dr. Adria VR, Ms. Rini Joseph, and all faculties and staff from other departments and institutions for your valuable presence. No event is complete without its participants. Today, we had a group of very enthusiastic listeners and students from various streams and institutions. I express my sincere gratitude to all the attendees who have joined us here today in this wonderful evening. At last, I thank all the association members for their works to put together this workshop session successfully. Now, once again, by thanking you all and concluding my words, have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. We have now come to the end of this webinar. I hope you all are enjoyed this learning experience. Thank you all for joining. Once again, thank you so much, Vijayagopal sir, for this amazing session. And let's wind up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Susha. Thank you.